This is Jeremiah Riggins from Sanctuary Family Farms. I'm married to Katie Riggins, and we have two boys, Ben and Sam, who are 10 and 13 years old. About 4 years ago, as Tina Turner would say, I left a good job in the city. At the time, I wasn't exactly sure why, except that my job was trying to get me to comply with COVID restrictions that I did not feel like I wanted or needed to follow. Deep in my heart, I knew God was calling me out of that job and that we were going to start homeschooling my boys. Since that time, I started farming with my family, and Sanctuary Family Farms was born. On our farm, we grow wheat, cotton, and a little bit of a lot of other stuff. More importantly, though, God has led us to a place to grow our children and show Jesus' love to our families and our community. I would like to share with you some of the principles that we teach our kids on the farm. First, God. In Matthew 22:37 through 38, Jesus said unto him, Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, with all thy soul, and with all thy mind. This is the first and great commandment. Every kid on the farm is taught that God comes first. Before we start work, before we start school, before we eat, before we sleep, we thank God for his blessings. We ask him for wisdom, and we ask him to give us direction because it is his work, not ours. We teach that God is loving. In 1 John 4:7 through 8, it says, Beloved, let us love one another, for love is of God, and everyone that loveth is born of God, and knoweth God. He that loveth not knoweth not God, for God is love. Every kid on the farm gets at least one hug a day from someone other than their parents. I suspect it is probably a lot more than this. Physical affection, hugs, high fives, head rubs is a part of their lives every day. As the scripture says, the best way to show God is by loving each other. What we teach them about others. Again, in Matthew 22:39, it says, And the second is like unto it, Thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. Just as the kids are taught to love God, they are also taught to love others. Whenever we do ministry work, they are all included in some way. Some of them visit with people in the community, some help pick vegetables, and some pray for people that have prayer requests. Paul has the older kids in Sunday school, and they often have lessons on empathy. Anytime someone on the farm is sick or struggling, you can be sure that someone will pray for them, and it is often the kids. In Philippians 2:3 through 4, it says, Let nothing be done through strife or vainglory, but in lowliness of mind let each esteem others better than themselves. Look not every man on his own things, but every man also on the things of others. Each of the kids have at least one farm chore, whether it's taking care of chickens, goats, pigs, calves, or taking out food scraps. We do this to teach them that they are part of something bigger. They learn that they are not the center of the world. They are also encouraged to help each other when needed. What we teach them about family. In 1 Timothy 5 through 8, it says, But if any provide not for his own, and especially for those of his own house, he hath denied the faith and is worse than an infidel. At Sanctuary Farms, we believe that ministry starts with a family. How you treat your family will reflect how you treat others. Helping your family is where our kids learn to take care of those outside of our family. Each kid is expected to help their immediate family first, then they are expected to help their cousins, aunts, and uncles. We often tell the kids that if something needs help, don't wait for someone else to do it. You do it. We also set up some work in the summer for the kids to work together without an adult watching their every move. This teaches them responsibility and how to solve problems, but it also teaches them empathy for each other and how to work together. If someone isn't pulling their weight, they get to see how that affects everyone. In Mark 3:33 through 35, it says, And he answered them, saying, Who is my mother or my brethren? And he looked round about on them which sat about him, and said, Behold, my mother and my brethren. For whoever shall do the will of God, the same is my brother and my sister and my mother. We also try to teach our kids that what you do and believe is more important than who you were born to. Some of our coworkers on the farm aren't related to each other. Because of this, our kids have some chosen aunts and uncles and cousins, not just blood-related ones. This extended family has a shared belief in Christ and a common goal in the kingdom, so we consider and treat them like they are family. What we teach them about themselves. Psalms 139:14 says, I will praise thee, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Marvelous are thy works, and that my soul knoweth right well. Just as we teach our kids that the world does not revolve around them, we also teach them that they are special. We tell them that God has a plan for them and that he shapes and guides them to fulfill that plan. One of the ways we do this is by encouraging them to find what they are good at or enjoy doing. All of them have to do the crappy chores like cleaning out chicken pens, but they are also encouraged to do extra things that they like. For example, one of them may be responsible for taking out food scraps, but they will help with goats because they have a knack for it or enjoy it. Also, we make a point of celebrating important milestones in their lives. We celebrate birthdays, baptism, bar mitzvahs, and good grades as a whole family. We make sure that each one understands how their decisions shape who they are and where God is taking them. In conclusion, there is a saying that goes something like this: a man needs two things in life, something that they are willing to die for and someone to die beside. I am so thankful that God has helped me find these things since leaving my old job. I am also overwhelmed that God has placed such wonderful people in my life to help raise my kids. These are just a few of the ways that we are helping our kids to become godly members of our family and his kingdom. We would love to hear how you are doing this with your family.
Hey, Bear, I think that's great, but I was thinking, some people out there are going to go, wow, this is so bad. You're not preparing your kids for the world. You need to prepare them for all of the crap that's out in the world. You need to strengthen them. You need to push them out in the world. You need to let them know what it is to be insecure and feelings of inferiority. I mean, it's like, aren't you over-nurturing them?
Yeah, so there's a delicate balance with that in my view of it. I look at it like training a dog. To make a dog truly like a guard dog, you have to let the guard dog win every now and then. And if you put him in an environment where the dog just gets beat down and you just teach him to be mean, he'll probably never really be a guard dog because he knows he can't win. And I think it's the same way with kids. You got to put them in an environment where they face struggles and they face challenges, but where they're allowed to win. And our kids lose a lot too. It's not just winning, but they have to be allowed to be successful. And I think in our society nowadays, in public schools especially, it's difficult. You have no control or no say over that, and sometimes kids get in way over their head, and before you know it, they're lost.
So what you're saying is that we don't coddle them here, but that they are exposed to the very core fundamental principles that are necessary for mature, rational, responsible adults.
Yeah, I would say that I don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing, but I would say my kids get in far more trouble on the farm than they ever did in school. I would say the standards are exceedingly higher on the farm than they were at school. By a long shot, and I would certainly say they've probably faced more life and death situations on the farm than they would have at school. It's just the nature of being raised on a farm and being asked to contribute, and sometimes they have to make pretty adult decisions.
Well, in a comparative analogy between sanctuary family farms, raising them on the farm, and not just raising them in the environment of the farm, but the principle of the farm. Mm-hmm. As it's different than school, because there's really no one in school that is going to teach them morals or that's going to teach them principles. I mean, they're there to educate them, but it's almost like you put them in this horrible environment without the structure, and you have educated idiots in some case, educated rebellious people in other cases. Mm-hmm. You have people they don't have character, but they have an education.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, certainly. Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's difficult to control those situations, and school consumes, nowadays school consumes so much of kids' times. Summers seem to get shorter and shorter every year. And so who becomes the primary influence on those kids but at school? And, really student to teacher ratio is so high at school that, what kids you're going to focus on. You're going to focus on the really good ones and the really bad ones. And if you have a kid that's just kind of an okay kid in the middle, he ain't going to get a lot of attention.
Well, sometimes there's a term now, I guess because I'm older, I hadn't picked up on it. It's called an influencer. Mm. And those are people who go around attempting to do nothing but influence the way that society turns. And I think we have to realize that teachers can be influencers. And of all the teachers I've met, I didn't want some of their influence on my kid's life. I never did, because I think they lacked the morals that I grew up with. They lacked the character, nature. I'm not saying they were bad people. I'm saying they were not the positive influences I wanted. And beyond that, I had no say-so.
Yeah, well, and I think when we send our kids out into the world, I think what I really noticed separating the wheat from the chaff is a couple of things. One of those is your ability to process through problems. So problem solving is pretty important. But I think even more so is morals are really important. So your ability not to be swayed one way or the other, so to stick to your guns. But I think a really, really important thing is confidence. Confidence in kids, I would probably say in your early adult life, confidence separates out who's long-term successful and who's not. And it's not confidence. It's not just confidence, but it's confidence in what? If you have just confidence in yourself, the first time that gets rocked, you're back to square one and you're starting all over. But I think we try to teach our kids, confidence in God. Hey, whatever God tells you to do, it's his job to make it happen. You have confidence that he's going to do that. You have confidence that if he says it's right, it's right. Even to the extent of if doing the right thing means that you put yourself at risk, you continue to do the right thing. You do the right thing no matter what.
I think you're talking about moral character now. And the moral character is the fiber. I think it's the root, basic fiber of everything in this world that is successful and fruitful and purposeful. And without it, we have all the misfits and everything we have, and the discontents and everything else.
Well, and I think I specifically used the word confidence for a reason, because we have a society where there are so many pushes about what's right. Is this right? Is that right? Is that right? Is that right? And, people get pushed around like the winds of the sea. In this environment, you're supposed to act this way. In this environment, you're supposed to act that way. But I think Christianity really calls us to be confident in what we know, not to be swayed by the things around us, but to just be confident in what you know. If it's right, it's right. Know that it's right, and act that what you're doing is right.
Yeah.
Without respect of people, place, or situation, you do what's right.
Yeah, we are not influenced by the influencer. If God said it and it's in the Word, then that's what we follow. It is not difficult. And you know what? In my mind, a lot of people would look at us and go, oh, you're just enslaving your children. And I'm like, you know what? We're setting them free. Because to know truth is to know freedom. And without the truth and following the truth, there is no freedom, because you're going to be subjected to one master or another.
Yeah. Well, and ultimately, at the end of the day, all of our kids are encouraged and told that wherever God leads them is where they have to go. Because as much as God is not a respecter of persons about what's right and wrong, that goes for the family too. God comes before the family. Whatever God tells you to do is what you do, even if Papa don't like it. And it's not that Papa ain't going to like it. It's that it may not be what Papa wants, but we do what God tells us to do regardless of anything else.
Well, I think in human, and maybe as a parent and a grandparent, what we want to do is we sometimes want to look at our children and say, but I don't want them to suffer anything. And yet, if we examine our lives, only when we have suffered have we found the knack to prove the truth that we believe, to prove it. Because if you don't know it works, you don't know it works.
Yeah. I've told Michaela this and Nana this, but I actually told Nana this morning. I said, if it doesn't suck a little bit, it makes me a little bit uncomfortable, because how much are you growing if it doesn't suck? You're not struggling. And it's like I think it was Michaela or Rebecca, if you make all A's in your class, you're not in the right classes. You're not meeting your potential if you make hundreds on everything. The goal in life shouldn't be to make hundreds. It should be to strive and to struggle and to grow.
Well, I don't know. I went to a first grade class, and I went to a first grade class, and I was outstanding.
Yes, fantastic,
fantastic.
And now I can tell the girls that, but I've never had that problem. I have yet to meet my potential.
Another term for that is I was delusional.
Yes, for sure. But no, but seriously, it's like if everything is easy and comes easy, what really are you doing? Like, you know, you have to grow. And I think I was talking to you, you know, kind of my new mantra now is my boss died on a cross. So to expect anything less is to, you know, to be foolhardy. We have to embrace the pain. We have to embrace the discomfort of life. You know, suffering is a choice. How much you suffer with it, how much you complain about it, how much you run your mouth about it, that's your choice. But pain is going to be a part of life. He doesn't give you an easy ticket out because you whine about it or because you say it's too hard. He judges when it's too hard. You don't.
I think it's our interpretation sometimes when the word says, my yoke is easy, my burden is light. And we go, whoa! But here, the two words we have to examine before that is my yoke. Mm-hmm. You have to be yoked. Mm-hmm. You have to be in conjunction with, in discipleship with. My yoke is easy. Once you accept my yoke, it's not hard. My burden, not your burden, my burden is light, but you've got to take on my burden.
Yeah. Well, and I think something that I'm starting to wake up and kind of see, and this would probably be my next bullet point on things I should teach my kids, is that complaining is a narcissistic behavior. Depression is narcissistic. All of those things are narcissistic because what they fundamentally do is force you to look inward. Even depression only forces you to look at yourself.
Well, if I don't, you know, I look at it tongue in cheek, but I go, but certainly I deserve better than that.
Yeah.
But I can't defend it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I deserve worse than that's the case.
For sure. And that's an important point in life too. You know, it's like I get real kind of gippy looking at myself complaining about stuff and going, you know, as I said in school, I never wanted mom and dad coming up to school because for everything I got caught for, there were 10 things I didn't get caught for. And it's the same kind of thing. You know, I got to be real cautious about complaining because, you know, ultimately what I deserve versus what I get, I'm still blessed beyond what I deserve.
Yeah, probably if we had a balance in it, you know, where the kid says, Dad, I deserved a harder swat than that.
Yes.
You know, but I don't think that's coming.
Yeah. No. So. Well, and here's the point at the end of the day, and what I tell my boys is I've never seen someone who was cold complain enough about the cold to be warm, or someone who was wet complain enough about being wet to get dry. Yeah. You know, we have to learn to just, you know, like you said in the sermon, whatever we're going through right now, whether we see the purpose in it or not, the very minimal that it will do is it grows our faith in Him and it grows our strength to endure.
Yes.
You know, do you own it? Do you own your life, or does He own your life?
Yes. You know, the children of Israel, and I'll conclude with this, the children of Israel, it wasn't that they complained that was so bad. When they were wilderness, oh, no food, no water, no whatever. It was that they doubted the very character and the nature of God. Mm-hmm. You know, you're not good because I have to endure that. That's such a selfish, narcissistic thought. Yeah. But it permeates us all if we let it, because that's our flesh heritage.
Yeah, well, and ultimately at the end of the day, they believed that the flesh hanging off their bones belonged to them, and it didn't. And God showed them real quick that it didn't belong to them. It belonged to Him.
Yep, absolutely. Bear, thank you. You always have such good insights. Plus, I will say this to anybody listening. Jeremiah lives what he speaks. His family does it. He teaches his boys. This is not rhetoric. We don't come in and tell you things that ought to be. We come in and tell you things that we are trying to make happen. And sometimes we're 100% successful, and sometimes there's a redo.
Yes, if we only preached what we did perfectly, there would be little to preach.
You're exactly right.
I learned that from a smart man.
Hey y'all, thanks for joining us for Around the Supper Table. At Sanctuary Family Farms, we want to be real. Whether that's through our blogs, daily verses, or even Nana's recipes, we want to share the messages that God has laid on each of our hearts. If you liked what you heard today or want to get in touch with us, you can find us on Facebook and YouTube at Sanctuary Family Farms, or our website at www.sanctuaryfamilyfarms.com, where we share our recipes and blogs and sell farm fresh beef and pork. We can't wait for you to join us again for next week's episode.